And I think when you've gone through things of your own, when you've lived some life, it's easier for you to have some perspective, to give some grace, or to push back on some nonsense when you've gone through stuff. I think back to when I was 21 and I'm baby faced standing in someone's living room giving them marital advice. And I'm just this baby faced kid, and how tough that can be for someone to take seriously, and how tough that is for new candidates. And so I like a candidate who's lived some life.
I think the key part with that is they've shown growth from it.
Yeah, right.
For sure. Right. A person who has made a series of mistakes is fine as long as they are minor mistakes. We're not talking felonious mistakes, and have shown some growth from it. I do get disheartened sometimes when I have to tell people that you're not going to qualify, that there are some ghosts in the past, or not too often, or not too far path. Just recently, within the last month, I was at an event doing a recruiting function, and a person discussed how their DOC probation officer has encouraged them to become a police officer. And once they get done with their felony probation soon, they're going to work on their criminal justice degree right now. And then in a couple of years, they're going to apply to be a police officer. And in no uncertain terms, is that person ever going to be a police officer?
For the obvious reason that you're unlawful to possess a firearm, but also it shows a pattern of behavior that is undesirable.
Right. That's the two prongs that I'm getting to is people, because their path was, I'm going to get this felony expunged. I'm going to get my my firearm rights back, and which are all possible things to do in the next decade.
Right.
But I'm talking to a 30-year-old who, and maybe when they're 60, this may be a reality for them. But I really felt bad because just beaming ear to ear. This is what I want to do. And we're in a field that isn't just a job, it is a career level field. It's a career. And to look at somebody and say, you're not going to ever be in this career, it's tough.
Yeah. So one of the things that comes up now, and this is probably not for this podcast, is recreational drug use has changed since you and I got hired. And I think that in Washington State especially, this is not settled science. I think you get a diverse viewpoint, agency to agency maybe, on recreational marijuana use and getting hired as a police officer. And that's just something I just throw that out there as something candidates should be aware of, that if you were using recreational marijuana 15 minutes before your written test, or 3 days before your written test, that's probably coming up in your background. And like I said, it's not settled science, and I'm sure there's case law to be coming out, but it is something that's going to be tricky to navigate, even in today's day and age.
Well, yeah, what I tell people, and raising a child of my own, is do things that will increase your likelihood of employment, not decrease.
Right.
The marijuana stance has changed wildly in the last my career, 28 years, but still comes down to set yourself up for success. If you are drinking heavily right now, that's not going to lead to better chances of being a police officer, because we're going to ask about not just drug use, we're going to ask about alcohol use, we're going to ask about a myriad of things. Just do things that will make it binary for yourself. Is this going to lead to a better chance, or this is going to maybe impede my chance of getting this career?
Yeah, that's good advice. Now, hard drugs, fentanyl, methamphetamine, cocaine, heroin.
Hard pass.
These are automatic failures. And so these are going to be an automatic disqualifier. If you make it to the background phase, that's going to come out, and not just in a drug screen. It's going to come out in the polygraph, or it's going to come out in the background interview. And candidates should just know that those are automatic disqualifier.
Yeah, what has caught some people too, especially some of the athletes that come through, the steroids as well have been a disqualifier, which kind of catches them off guard, because the social perception of those isn't that, oh, they're a felony drug offense.
Yeah.
And it kind of can catch some people.
You know what? Another one that catches people and it actually surprises them, and it's going to surprise some of the people that are watching, guaranteed. And that is, if I have a prescription for something and you come over and don't feel well and I offer it to you, this is delivery of a controlled substance. And it seems innocent because I just have some, I don't fill a lot of prescriptions. Let's just say I have some prescription ibuprofen and I give you one. That is delivery of a controlled substance by definition. And I've seen that trip people up in the background process. If you have a prescription, keep it to yourself.
And
the flip of it, if your buddy offers you a prescription, hey, oh, you got a headache? Here, I have this stuff. I still have some. That's going to come up too. Have you ever taken a prescription medication that was not prescribed to you? Now that immediately you think, oh, no, am I buying prescription pills off the street? No. Have you ever had a buddy go, oh, you have a headache? Here, I have some of these extra. It's the same, technically speaking, and it'll trip you up.
Part of my career, I spent almost 10 years in narcotics. Wasn't a path I chose or thought I would ever do, and then got to this job about 2 seconds, went, oh, drugs drive crime. But you don't know what you don't know. And I remember getting introduced to drug laws as a young cop and realizing this delivery portion is transferring control of a drug. And I thought, oh my gosh, my grandmother is the biggest drug dealer I ever knew. Now, she never sold anybody drugs. But if you said, oh, my back hurts or I have a headache, Grandma always had something. And I don't remember taking anything from her because my parents are like, don't take anything from Grandma. But gosh, she was always like this pill pusher for whatever it was. So if you're watching out there, kids, don't take other people's drugs.
And I didn't expect us to go down this rabbit hole, but another thing that has been coming up more and more is psychedelic mushrooms. Like, I think people don't really realize that this could be an illicit substance. And it will, when you get to the part about have you taken hallucinogens in the past X number whatever months, and you say, oh yeah, well, innocently, yeah, I took these mushrooms at a whatever, then that's going to be a problem. Which reminds me, I was in my 20s. No, scratch that because I wasn't a cop yet. I was in my late teens. I was living alone, or I was living in with a roommate, and I come home one day and we had a friend. He was over and he's like sitting in the chair in the living room. This was a quaint place, very little furnishings. And I passed by without even so much as a greeting. Maybe I gave a hello, but like 1,000-yard stare. Like, that's weird. So I go, changed my clothes or did whatever, dropped my backpack, whatever. I came back and I sat down. And I look over and I said, hey, what's going on? And I get like this really slow. You know those mushrooms in the horse barn? And I said, yeah. And he says, I ate some. And I said, you're going to die. And so I sat there for the next however many hours while he did not die. And he had what looked like just the most unpleasant trip with horse barn mushrooms. So later, a mutual friend of ours who was sort of a hippie said, no, that's not, you're not supposed to just eat wet mushrooms off the horse barn floor. There's a different way to do it. Never tried it, so I don't know, but he did it wrong. He did not die. But that's my rabbit hole from hallucinogens. So you talk about, learning from mistakes, showing growth, putting time distance between you and mistakes, showing that you're on the right path. And for a lot of ways, as someone at 21, it's a lot easier so long as you keep your nose clean in your late teens and early 20s, because it's easier to have a clean background than someone who's had a divorce and they're 35. And so Now it's time to you're preparing, you're intentionally preparing to apply for a career in law enforcement. And so we've already talked a little bit about college earlier, maybe that path or another path. Some departments are going to require college, some are not. Very few will say you must have college and it must be criminal justice. If there is a college requirement, it'll be more broad than that. And so we've already talked a little bit about that. And so they're preparing to apply. And so they're going to public safety testing. There's a written test that morning and a physical agility test. And let's talk a little bit about the written test. So there's a study guide available on public safety testing's website. You personally interact with potential candidates in your role as a police sergeant now. As an ancillary duty, you head up our recruiting. And so you personally interact with people who are going to take the test. And so tell me a little bit about the advice you give them for preparing for the written test.
I've never seen the test. I don't know what questions are, but that study guide, they do sell it, and I suggest that people invest in their future by preparing the best they can by getting the study guide. And I've talked to scores of people that we've hired that have gone through it, and someone said, I didn't waste the money on that, and I did okay. And I'm just not willing myself to roll dice and let things a chance. I wasn't a great student, so test taking doesn't come natural to me. And I can't imagine trying to get a career that you want to do for potentially the rest of your working life and not preparing the best that you can, because it is a increasingly competitive field, especially where we are at. We went from many openings to now being selective with a few openings, which is happening across the nation now. That the best thing you can do is set yourself up for success by doing the best studying you can. Now, maybe I haven't even looked. Maybe you can get it like at a secondhand, like buy the used book, maybe.
Get it from a friend.
Yeah.
Let me just back up a second, because we talk about a written test, but I don't think it's a given. I don't think it goes without saying what the test is made of. We're talking memory recall, reading comprehension. What is this test? I've never seen PST's test either. My understanding is it's some amount of memory recall or reading comprehension. Can you understand what you've read? It's just a very basic aptitude test, right?
That's the best I know of it too.
So it's not, you don't have to know anything about police work in particular. There's no requirement, obviously, that you have experience with police work or with the law or with the laws of the state of Washington. It's a basic aptitude test. Compare it to like the ASVAB test, maybe.
That's probably the best one to have, or maybe even SAT, but a lower version of SAT. But ASVAB, more of an applied knowledge type test. Yeah, I haven't heard anybody say, they asked me what was this law or that law, was it say? It would be reading comprehension. Can you read something and digest it and pick out the clues? Can you have an overview of some things and pick out the important stuff from there? Critical thinking.
Right. So eat breakfast, do your morning routine, have some coffee, show up on test day, get a good night's sleep.
Repeat.
And then after the written test, at least with public safety testing, when you test in person, you then go to the physical agility test. And we talked about how it's changed.